What's up, everyone? So, the last few months, I've been thinking about some newer horror films, and I've noticed a real trend with newer horror films, particularly the last 10 or so years, maybe even 12 years. And I think I've discovered a real problem that I have with them. And it's a problem that initially I just kind of wrote some of the new horror films off as like, yeah, it's good. I'm gonna rewatch it at some point. And not loving it. There are a lot of movies that people freak out about or have freaked out about and expressed extreme love and appreciation for. And I'm right there with you for the most part. But I've noticed a trend with movies that I went and saw in theaters and I actually liked then. I'm noticing a trend though, and a failure of rewatchability. There is a real problem with newer horror films. And I think something that keeps horror alive and has kept horror alive for decades is the ability to rewatch. The rewatchability of horror films is what keeps horror films alive. In the 80s and into the 90s, the rental craze. I was grew up in this beautiful generation of video renting, and I've said this a multitude of times. I grew up in, thankfully, in a household that we didn't have everything, but we did have HBO, Cinemax, Showtime. We had a great movie package like selection. We had great channels. And a lot of the times, we couldn't afford to go rent movies every weekend, but we didn't need to because we had a great cable package. And there was always something new. And there were so many movies I didn't know the name of, and I would just catch them on HBO and Cinemax and Showtime throughout the 90s. And video renting is something I 100% participated in. And a lot of the times I would record on blank VHSs the movies I would see on HBO, Cinemax, Showtime. And so there was a lesser need for video rental, but I still rented quite a lot of videos. My household did. And I'll say this. There are certain films that I would rent that I would re-rent over and over and over again. And those are the same films that I watch at least 2 or 3 times a year. Most everything gets at least of my favorites get a watch a year, but there's some movies that even get 2 watches a year. And a lot of the newer horror films, I can't even bring myself to rewatch. Not because I think that they're bad films per se, but I think about Hereditary a lot. And the term elevated horror. This term elevated horror, like it's you need to say elevated horror to because these movies are highbrow and they're thought provoking horror films that are just they're winning in awards and things like that. And listen, to see Amy Madigan up there receiving an award for Weapons as Gladys, 100% on board for Sinners to go up there and break records for its nominations at award shows. I'm 100% for it because Sinners, when it comes down to it, is a monster movie. Now, granted, I wish that the monsters, the quote unquote vampires in the film, were more vampiric. I wish they had bigger fangs. I wish there was a little bit more of a transformation. I wish it was a little more monster-esque. But I understand the vast majority, the regular casual person does not give a shit about a monster movie. I am a horror fan that monsters are what made horror for me at a young age, and to a large degree make horror still today. Now, there are these elevated horror movies that have come out over the last 10 to 12 years that I'm not understanding, I guess, why. I'll see them in theaters and I'll think they're either good, not so good, or okay. I don't really ever go. I've never went into a horror movie and hated it. Right out of the box, mostly. Hereditary, I thought it was really good. It got a lot of hype around the time when it came out and everything, but I bought, and then, naturally, I'm a collector of film. If I see a movie, I like it, I buy it when it comes out on video. And I bought Hereditary when it came out, but I went to go rewatch it, and I think I did rewatch it for like maybe a little bit. I think I did get one rewatch in, and I got about halfway through, and I was like, I think I'm good. I think I am good. And I just shut it off. And I didn't really think about like not having the desire to rewatch it. And then that slowly happened with other films. Midsummer, I did like a VOD, a rental on demand, rented it. And then I think it was like a couple bucks. It was like crazy low deal. It was like $3.96 or something on Amazon. So I bought it. It was super cheap. It was less than a cup of coffee. Bought it, and I was like, I'm going to watch this. Went to go put it in. I was like, I don't really have desire to watch this. And I just didn't watch it. And I didn't really think about the desire or lack thereof to not revisit these films, especially these films that are considered, I guess, elevated horror. And then I really started thinking about it this fall because I went and saw Sinners in theaters when it came out, had fun with it, loved it in theaters. I thought it was great. And I also went and saw Weapons this summer in theaters. I was in Portland, Maine. Actually, I take it back. We had left Portland. We were in Bangor. So we went to a movie theater in Bangor. We went and saw Weapons with, just a handful of people in a nice big theater. And I liked it a lot. I was like, this is awesome. Shanice Kobylowski from Kobylowski Tires from Uncle Buck playing like a witch. I'm in. And I liked it a lot. So come October, I think that Sinners was streaming on HBO. And I was like, I'm going to rewatch Sinners. That was so much fun in theater. I'm going to rewatch it. I got about a quarter way through, and I was just like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. And I shut it off. And I haven't had a desire to like watch it in full again. I will eventually. Haven't bought it yet, and I will, because I like to just support, especially when movies do well. I want to support them, and I did like the film, but I haven't had a strong desire to rewatch. And I liked Weapons a lot. I liked Weapons probably a little bit more than Sinners. And Weapons came to HBO, I think, end of November, early December. And I was like, oh, I'm definitely rewatching Weapons. And I did finish Weapons, but I got about halfway through and I was just like, I think I'm good. Like, I don't have, like, the desire isn't there to even finish the film. And I'm someone that I never start a film and don't finish it. But like these films, there's no strong desire to finish these films. Now, I did find it interesting because the term elevated horror comes up so much. I was like, what do people consider elevated horror? And they mentioned Get Out. They mentioned Sinners. They mentioned Midsummer. They mentioned It Follows. It Follows is a movie I didn't like when I saw it. And then I rewatched it a few years ago. And I did give it a full rewatch, and I didn't like that one. So that one's kind of an anomaly. That's a film I didn't like, so obviously rewatchability is going to be low to nothing. And so another thing that I had tried to do was look up what do they consider elevated horror that I loved. And there was only one that they called elevated horror that I don't know if it is elevated horror, but it's 2015's The Witch. I love The Witch. The Witch is so rewatchable. It's so fun to watch. And just the historic value of like what happened in Salem. I've been to Salem. I did, tours. I did the whole thing, spent days there. Love the whole history of Salem. I actually have a great story. There's the Witchboard Museum in Salem, and I actually have a video that's gonna come out at some point. I want to put out and record because I have a cool story about the Witchboard Museum there. But it's, I rewatch The Witch at least once a year. I love that film, and to me, that's a monster movie. It's a witch movie. Um, but for everything else, it's so hard to rewatch. And Get Out is another one. Get Out's one I saw in theaters. I liked. I had fun with it. I thought it was really well written, amazingly acted, amazing actors in that film. And I rewatched it. I rewatched it once, and I remember because I think that one came out in 2015, 2016 maybe. And I think it was 2016, and I rewatched that one when it came like to streaming, and I was like, I gotta buy this eventually. And I rewatched it, and I that was the same thing. I got to like maybe the middle of the second act, and I was like, I'm good. I'm good. I don't need to rewatch these. Where I think about films like, say, Sleepwalkers. Sleepwalkers, if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, I'm sure the score is relatively low. Rotten Tomatoes, you've heard me, if you heard me talk in the Scream 7 video, you've heard me talk about how I view Rotten Tomatoes. It's irrelevant. No horror fan especially should be taking anything of merit off Rotten Tomatoes. Go see a movie for yourself, make your own decision. These people that dedicate their life to trashing movies and seeming hoity and toity on Rotten Tomatoes, or professional reviewers for magazines, that I've seen better, more orchestrated, I guess, or crafted reviews for movies like Scream 7 from, like, say, Variety or some other films that are at least breaking down a little bit more what they didn't like. Whereas Fangoria and like Dread Central, and I want to say, I don't mean to be shitting on them, but they've kind of, all their postings and their kneecapping of certain horror films, it's fun to shit on them because they're both kind of joke publications now. One, Dread Central is just a news site that I hasn't really put out anything of anything super helpful. They'll have a post, and you'll see the post, and you won't really see much else. And it's usually stuff you've already heard about. Their news reporting is a little, sorry, Dread Central, but anyway, same with Fangoria. Fangoria has just been an utter joke, and obviously they had all their controversy a few years ago, so it's not shocking. They had, Mick Garris and Adam Green, and everybody fled that was under the Fangoria podcast network or whatever the hell it was, and they haven't returned because it was just the whole Fangoria meltdown, and they haven't returned to form. And Fangoria hasn't been the same magazine in print in 25 years, probably, or at least close to that, at least 20 years. Oh wait, no, I said 15 because they did a good job on the George Survival of the Dead. They did like a little article on him around the time that movie was coming out, and it was good. But other than that, like, I stopped reading that magazine. It just seems like there's like Sleepwalkers. I could rewatch Sleepwalkers endlessly. I could rewatch Night of the Demons. I watch Night of the Demons gets at least one watch a year. Sleepwalkers, at least one watch a year. Pet Sematary. I got Pet Sematary 2 over here. Hellraiser, Fright Night, Lost Boys. And then there's even movies that are like lower on the totem pole as far as like where they rank in the pantheon of horror films. Something like, I don't even know, like what's a random horror movie? Like The Stuff. I love The Stuff. I'll watch The Stuff at least once a year. Usually around like summertime, I'll bust out Uncle Sam. I'll bust out Mosquito. These are films that I think are super rewatchable. Whereas these big, huge, like movies that are either doing well in the box office or even not. Like, I think like Babadook did good and had great reviews, but I don't think it did great in the box office because it was limited release. Same thing with It Follows. I don't think it had a big release, or at least it didn't seem it at the time. But those are like fan-loved movies. I have a hard time revisiting any of these after I watch them. Some because I don't like, but I watched Midsommar. I liked Midsommar. I have no desire to watch that movie again. Same thing with Hereditary and and Weapons I loved in theaters, and Sinners I loved in theaters. I just have no desire to rewatch it. So, what do you think? What is the reason that these newer films are lacking that rewatchability? I don't think it's just nostalgia, because there are newer movies like Late Phases, Night of the Lone Wolf, Stakeland. These are monster movies as well. And The Witch, which is kind of lumped into the rest of like these newer modern A24-esque horror films that I rewatched. So what is it about some of the newer modern horror films where I'm not feeling the ability, the desire of rewatchability with these? What's your take on it? If you have a take on why some of these newer movies aren't that rewatchable, let us know in the comments. But maybe I'm in the minority, but I don't think that I am. And if I am, someone down below in the comments, please tell me why you think maybe I'm missing something. But I don't think I am, but we'll see. I think they really are lacking rewatchability, and that's a real big problem to carry horror on. To carry horror on, you're going to need that. And when I think about the amount of people that probably rewatched the Scream franchise gearing up for Scream 7, and I'm sure no one puts Scream 7 on the same level as Hereditary or Weapons or Sinners, or It Follows, The Babadook, and all these like newer over the last 10 to 12 years films. More people will rewatch the Scream sequels because they're gearing up towards it. I understand like there's more to watch and to bite on, but why are movies that are kind of seen as lesser horror films much more rewatchable to audiences? Because to me, yes, the movies that are trashed on Rotten Tomatoes, I'll rewatch a lot more than the films that are praised. A 99% Rotten Tomato score means nothing to me. And that site means nothing to me. So maybe that's why. Am I in the minority? Let me know in the comments. And that's all I got for you today. We'll see you tomorrow.